Academica Media. From Academica Media Studios in Miami, Florida, it's Big Ideas in Education, a weekly recap of inspiration and innovation in your schools.
Hello, education lovers. Welcome to the program. Always excited to have you joining us on this week's installment of Big Ideas in Education. I'm Ryan Kairalla from Doral College, joined by Dr. Sarah Boulos-Fye from Somerset Academy Schools. Hey, Sarah, great to be chatting with you.
Hi, Ryan. Hello, everyone.
Get us started. I need that fantastic education news and big ideas. What do you have for us this week?
Well, I feel like often we've said on the show that we really make an effort to provide some positive, inspirational news, right? We want to bring things to the table that are, pretty positive, give somebody a good feeling about what we're doing. And I think I've also mentioned on the show that it's often difficult to find positive stories, right? We have to kind of dig a little bit sometimes because unfortunately, a lot of what we hear about education is pretty negative. Well, I was really excited to see this headline. The most exciting news in education isn't found in the headlines, right? Because it said there's something to be really excited about. We also often talk about how difficult it is as educators to prepare our students for a future that we don't really understand yet. People throw out statistics like 80% of the jobs our students will have haven't been invented yet. And I don't know how much truth there is to that, but it can be really daunting and it can be really scary. So a bipartisan group of 20 state legislators and leaders recently released The Time Is Now, a report that provides a blueprint for states to build future-ready public schools that deliver the learning and enrichment opportunities students and families both need and deserve. This report was published by the National Conference of State Legislatures, and it outlines in rich detail key elements of that blueprint and a process for bringing it to life. The four key areas of work include 1. Ensuring all teachers and education leaders receive the support they need to be successful. 2. Developing rigorous and adaptive learning systems. 3. Supporting all learners so they can be productive and successful members of their communities. And 4. Creating an ongoing nonpartisan planning process to set goals for mutual success and shared prosperity. Now, you might be thinking, well, we're talking about creating future-ready public schools. Why don't we have a lot of technology and AI and some other, buzzwords going on here? And really, it's interesting that getting us ready for the future is really about focusing on our educators, our students, our families, and being adaptive to what they need. It sounds almost too simple, right?
Sounds like something we can all get behind for sure.
But it definitely sounds like something we can all get behind. And I think that is really inspirational to think that we don't have to know what's coming to be the best educators for that future.
I think that's right. And I mean, to me, there's something almost liberating about that as an education system, because it's so easy to look at what the demands of the future are going to be for our students and be daunted by it. Because as you said, we all think of the future and we think technology. So we think we need technology now. And what does technology cost? Money and resources and changes in procedures. And what the message of your group is telling us is that it's really about investing in what we know works and, understanding that maybe we don't know what the jobs of the future are, but we know those jobs are probably going to require some amount of innovative spirit and critical thinking. And those are things that we can endow in our students and our teachers today to prepare those students for tomorrow. And that's something that's well within our wheelhouse and doesn't necessarily require a huge tech budget to make happen.
Exactly. And I think the idea of being growth-minded, right? Thinking about what can we do to improve ourselves, what support is needed to ensure that our teachers are able to grow and adapt to whatever is coming next. That's incredible. May not be an inexpensive investment, right? Being aware of and responsive to those needs is not necessarily, oh, it's as simple as just like, cool, what do you need? Check the box. Obviously, there's a lot of steps between what do you need and what do we, how do we get it? But it is exciting to know that if it is expecting a future that we can be very much prepared for.
But it does require, sort of reading between the lines, a significant investment in educators.
Absolutely.
And doubling down on the central role that they play in the process, not seeing them as an afterthought, and that means making a financial investment in the recruitment and retention of your teachers and the development of those teachers so that they are ready and prepared to prepare the students for what happens next. And I would imagine that most education experts across the board would say, as by consensus, that we're not doing that enough with our teachers right now. And so we have a ways to go there.
Absolutely. And that's part of, I think, the adaptive learning system, right? Yeah. So what was the issue that we were having 5 years ago is not necessarily what's happening today. Although, unfortunately, teacher shortages have been going on for beyond 5 years. But thinking back to 15 years ago, we had a very different set of needs with our education force. And we were getting to a point where I believe, in the 90s, the concern was that we didn't have enough young teachers to replace the aging workforce, right? Because people were staying in education so long that there was going to be a large number of retiring teachers and not enough new teachers. Fast forward 10, 15 years, and the issue was that people weren't staying in education as long. So we had this rotating, recruitment situation where people were getting recruited, but they weren't staying. And so how do we grow and retain the teachers is the question of today. And what are we going to do about it? So I'm excited about this. I think it very much plays into what we know works and how do we make sure that this happens at the school level, at the district level, and of course, nationwide with what we're doing in public schools, in public charter schools, and also in educator preparation programs.
It is powerful insight. And on one hand, it allows us to maybe breathe a sigh of relief that even though we don't know everything of what the future holds in education, we still know how to prepare for it. But on the other side of that coin is the things that we know we have to do to prepare for it are not easy tasks, and they're currently
Correct.
some of the biggest policy challenges that we have in education.
Correct.
But we need to meet that challenge.
Absolutely. Well, I have to say, I know we missed a week because I actually was out sick. So I appreciate you, Ryan, and everybody being patient with us last week. But Ryan has been wanting to talk about this topic for some time, and he's been sitting on it. So I don't want to make you wait any longer.
I'm so excited for this topic, although now I feel like I'm less excited about it only because you brought in such a powerful, important topic that gets to the central issues of what we have to confront as educators. And my story isn't that, but it is adorable. And so I still stand by it, and I am still just as excited to bring the story to you. Okay. So in Edutopia last month, Sarah, educator Sarah Wysocki talked about the success that her school had, or her school district had, I should say, in bringing a sport under their elementary school PE classes that you might not know about yet, Sarah, but you will soon. And that sport is pickleball. Have you heard of pickleball, Sarah?
I feel like I'm hearing a lot about pickleball. I heard somebody say it was like the fastest growing sport in the country. And I'll be honest, I haven't had the chance to play it yet.
Now, as you know, as a researcher, Sarah, being the fastest growing anything is like the most misleading statistic in the world. But this sport really is growing, and it is, like, let me tell you, as now avid pickleballer, this game is fun.
All right, tell me more.
So let me tell you a little bit about pickleball, because maybe there are people like you who are maybe only hearing about it from the periphery, but have yet to hold a paddle in their hand. So for the uninitiated, pickleball is similar to tennis, but it is played on a much smaller court, and it uses a hollow plastic ball. Ms. Wysocki notes that while the game is certainly a hit with adults these days, pickleball is also great for elementary schoolers. From the article, quote, "Pickleball is great for children because it is played on a small court with a lightweight, easy-to-maneuver paddle. Kids can cover the court easily, and the equipment isn't overly burdensome for little hands. Elementary-age children have all the skills needed to start learning. The article also talks about how the sport is great for schools with limited space and budget, since you can fit up to 4 pickleball courts in the space of a single tennis court, and paddles and nets are quite affordable. The article also goes into other reasons why pickleball is perfect for PE students, including the fact that younger and older kids can play the game together safely, and the game can help students develop hand-eye coordination, which is important for developing classroom skills like encoding and decoding. And most importantly, pickleball just brings people together. Quote, even the most competitive games are filled with moments of laughter, discussion, and camaraderie. The psychological effects of being active, having fun, and appreciating each other might just be the thing that many schools need. Now, as I said before, I have fallen in love with pickleball. I was a tennis player for most of my life, and I played one round of pickleball. I'm never going to play tennis again. Pickleball is so because, like, you know, I mean, you can tell from looking at me, not a big fan of running, and you don't have to do that very much in pickleball, but you do get to hit stuff with the paddle, and it does require some strategy, and it is really fun and addictive. And until I read this article, it never occurred to me that this would be a great game to put in schools and PE classes. And it's absolutely right for all the reasons that it mentioned. It's an affordable sport. It can fit in a small space. Big kids and little kids can play together. It's not a contest that just rewards the fast and the strong. You know, it's more about strategy, where you place the ball. Sometimes you need a softer touch rather than a harder touch to score a point. It's a blast. I would love nothing more than for two things to happen. One, that we meet the educational challenges that you talked about in your story, Sarah. And two, of equal importance, we get pickleball on every school campus in America.
So it sounds like what you're saying is pickle is the new dodge.
Oh my God. Can we please replace dodgeball with pickleball? We will have so many fewer red ball burns on people's heads.
And it sounds like
a demonstrably safer game. What was that?
Yeah. And it sounds like happier children also would be an outcome.
Without a doubt. Yes.
So let me ask a question, because as somebody who hasn't played, I have to admit that I can be pretty competitive when it comes to anything. So how is it that the game ends up being less, I like healthy competition. I like promoting friendly competition, especially when we're talking about kids. How do we make sure, or how does the game inherently provide friendly competition and not so much, hurt feelings as we see in dodgeball?
That's a great question. I think there's kind of 3 reasons that come to mind. One is, I think pickleball culture is just kind of a friendly one. I don't know what it is about the people who play it, but they're just chiller. I think because the game doesn't require as much space and you're not running around as much, you can kind of carry on a conversation more easily with somebody. You can even talk while you're playing the game. And so I think that facilitates some friendliness. And also, the game by its nature is not as aggressive. If you watch the best in the world play this game, it's actually quite boring, I think, to watch as a spectator sport, because the very best pickleballers are not smashing the ball at 1,000 miles an hour. They're doing these little taps, standing in front of the net, just little taps back and forth, because strategically that makes more sense than hitting it as hard as you can, because the ball is hollow. So no matter how hard you hit it, eventually the air resistance slows it down. Okay. And you can return it pretty easily. So the game is more about soft touches to the left and to the right, getting your other opponent to move. And so as a result of that, you don't have to worry as much about somebody angrily smacking you in the face with the ball at 1,000 miles an hour. Because, I mean, as somebody who's gotten hit by a pickleball, I've never been hurt by one, because it's just a little soft ball. So you put all those things together, I think you get a happier, kind of good-natured sport that still gives you a good workout, which is obviously something we want in our PE classes.
So it sounds like, and again, I don't have personal experience yet with this, but it sounds like for younger kids, it might actually be really helpful in developing those motor skills, those more fine motor skills, gross motor skills. And also if you're just helping them learn reaction time and things like that, which we try to do in all sorts of different games and sports, that this would actually give them a really good opportunity without the danger of getting hurt, right? So younger kids are definitely, we give them those really light balls and things like that so that they don't hurt themselves, but also the act of swinging and having that implement often we don't want to give little kids paddles, right? Because they end up hurting each other, hurting themselves. But it sounds like there's not as much danger in that.
I am inclined to agree with that. And I wish I had sort of the background in exercise science to let you know, like to know whether I can support the contentions made in this article that it has benefits for motor skills or, hand-eye coordination or things like that. Intuitively, it seems like it would.
Right.
And we're going to get you out on the court, Sarah, because I'm telling you, like,
we're going to have to try it.
First of all, you're going to have no trouble finding a court because like every week there's like another court in our area that does pickleball. And I have to be honest,
I feel like especially here in South Florida, I am a much later adopter. Everybody has been talking about this.
Well, we're going to get you on board because I want you to know what everybody's so excited about. We're going to make you love pickleball both as a person who wants to exercise, but also an educator because you're going to see the benefits in both areas.
Sounds
For those
great.
of you viewers and listeners out there who are also fans of pickleball and want to let Dr. Fye know just how much she's missing out on, please tweet at us at Academica Media with the hashtag BigIdeasInEducation and let us know your tips for how you stay out of the kitchen. And one day Sarah's going to be able to admire that reference.
All right. I was like, what kitchen are we talking about?
All right, gang. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us this week. We are always thrilled to be sharing great education news with you. And we're going to see you next week on the show.
Thanks. Bye.
The views expressed on the preceding program have been those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of Academica, its clients, staff, affiliates, or advertisers.